Most people think dogs are loyal because humans trained them that way, and they think cats are distant because cats simply don't care, but both explanations are wrong. Dogs and cats didn't just become different pets, they followed completely different evolutionary paths. One species evolved to survive through cooperation, the other evolved to survive alone, and thousands of years later, your living room is still revealing the consequences. Today, millions of people share their homes with both dogs and cats. They eat similar food, they sleep on the same couches, they visit the same veterinarians, and yet their behaviour often feels completely different. A dog might wait by the door for hours after you leave. It follows you from room to room. It watches your face constantly, as if trying to understand what you're thinking. A cat, on the other hand, may disappear for half the day, ignore your attempts at affection, and then suddenly demand attention on its own terms. At first glance it seems obvious. Dogs are loyal, cats are independent. But here's where things get interesting. The difference didn't begin in your home. It began thousands of years ago, long before cities, long before farming, and long before either animal became a pet. To understand why dogs love humans so deeply, you have to start with wolves. For most of human history, wolves were among the most dangerous animals people encountered. They hunted in coordinated packs. They could track prey over enormous distances. They survived through teamwork. Everything about a wolf's life depended on cooperation. A lone wolf was vulnerable. A pack was powerful. Inside those packs, wolves developed complex social relationships. They communicated constantly. They worked together. They raised pups together. They depended on one another for survival. In other words, wolves were already experts at forming social bonds long before humans entered the picture. Then something unusual happened. Around 20 to 40,000 years ago, some wolves began spending time near human camps. Human hunter-gatherers left behind scraps, bones, and food waste. For certain wolves, those camps became an opportunity. The least aggressive wolves gained access to easy calories. The most aggressive wolves were chased away. Over many generations, natural selection favoured wolves that could tolerate human presence. But humans didn't just change wolves. Wolves brought something valuable as well. They could detect danger earlier than humans. They could track animals. They acted as living alarm systems. Slowly, a partnership emerged, and because wolves were already adapted for social cooperation, they eventually redirected some of those bonding instincts toward humans. Humans became part of the pack. That's the key idea. Dogs don't simply obey humans. In many ways, they relate to humans using the same social systems their wolf ancestors once used with other wolves. This is why dogs constantly seek approval. This is why they look at your face for guidance. This is why they often become anxious when separated from you. Their brains evolved for social connection, and over thousands of years, humans strengthened those traits even further. Dogs that were friendlier toward people survived better. Dogs that paid attention to humans received more food and protection. Generation after generation, dogs became increasingly specialized for life alongside us. Some scientists have even found that when dogs and humans make prolonged eye contact, both species release oxytocin, the same hormone associated with bonding between parents and children. Think about that for a second. Evolution didn't just teach dogs to live near humans, it helped build an emotional bridge between two completely different species. But cats followed a very different path. Unlike wolves, wildcats were solitary hunters. They didn't hunt in packs. They didn't depend on social groups. They survived alone. For a wildcat, cooperation wasn't the key to survival. Self-sufficiency was. And that difference changed everything. Around 12,000 years ago, humans began farming. For the first time in history, people started storing large amounts of grain in permanent settlements. Unfortunately, grain attracted mice, then rats. Rodent populations exploded around early villages, and somewhere nearby, wildcats noticed something extraordinary. Humans had accidentally created giant concentrations of prey. For a small predator, early farming communities were basically endless hunting grounds. So cats moved closer, not because they wanted companionship, not because they wanted human approval, because there were mice everywhere. Humans quickly realized these animals were useful. Cats reduced rodent populations, cats protected food stores, and a mutually beneficial relationship began. But unlike dogs, cats never needed humans emotionally. They needed the environment humans created. That's a very important distinction. Dogs joined humans. Cats moved into human civilization. The relationship was beneficial, but it wasn't built on the same foundation, and because cats remained relatively independent, domestication changed them far less dramatically. Modern dogs are radically different from wolves. Modern cats are surprisingly similar to their wild ancestors. In fact, if you saw an African wildcat today, you might mistake it for an ordinary house cat. Many of your cat's behaviours are still remarkably ancient. The stalking, the ambushing, the sudden bursts of energy at 3 a.m. Even play behaviour is often just hunting practice in disguise. Inside every house cat lives a predator that hasn't changed very much at all. Now here's where people often misunderstand cats. Independence is not the same thing as indifference. Cats can form strong attachments to humans. Research has shown that many cats develop secure bonds with their owners similar to those observed in children and caregivers. They recognize our voices. They learn our routines. They often seek comfort from familiar people, but they express those bonds differently. A dog might run toward you. A cat might simply choose to sit beside you. A dog seeks constant interaction. A cat often values proximity more than participation. The affection is there. It's just operating through a different behavioral system. This is why comparing dogs and cats can sometimes be misleading. Dogs evolved from highly social pack animals. Cats evolved from solitary hunters. Each species brought its evolutionary history into our homes, and that history still shapes their behavior every single day. Your dog follows you because cooperation helped its ancestors survive. Your cat disappears for hours because independence helped its ancestors survive. Neither strategy is wrong. They're simply different solutions to the same problem. How do you stay alive long enough to pass on your genes? And perhaps that's the strangest part of all. Dogs and cats became two of humanity's most successful companions without following the same path. One species bonded with us. The other learned to live comfortably alongside us. One joined the team. The other rented an apartment in civilization and never really moved out. And yet both succeeded beyond anything their ancestors could have imagined. Today, hundreds of millions of dogs and cats share the planet with humans. They sleep in our homes. They influence our emotions. They become part of our families. All because two very different animals discovered that life near humans offered extraordinary advantages. And tonight, if you have a dog, it's probably going to curl up somewhere nearby, perfectly happy just knowing you're close. And if you have a cat, it may disappear for hours, ignore you completely, and then suddenly appear beside you when you least expect it. Not because one loves you and the other doesn't, but because thousands of years of evolution taught them two very different ways of being close to someone. And maybe that is why both animals feel so familiar to us. Because in a strange way, they reflect two sides of ourselves. Sometimes we want connection, loyalty, and someone waiting at the door. And sometimes we want space, silence, and the freedom to return when we are ready. Different instincts, different histories, but the same quiet truth. Love does not always look the same.